Right, hello, welcome to the online launch of the Ministry of Eco-Education's first year impact report. I'm Helen Taylor, trustee of the Green Briton Foundation, which has been funding this programme from the start. I'm zooming in from a whaling conference in Slovenia, which sounds a bit strange. I'm completely anti-whaling, and I'm here on behalf of another organisation very dear to the heart of Dale Vince, who is part of the Green Briton Foundation. I'm here with Sea Shepherd to try and get them to stop whaling. So I've just broken away from that conference to join us today. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us. Today we've brought together young people, teachers, academics, and partners in environmental education to explore the findings of research that is measuring the impact of the Ministry of Eco-Education's cross-curricular approach to education for sustainability. Now, we wanted to start with a photograph which reminds us of what the Ministry of Eco-Education is all about. This is Natalie Ellison, a teacher at St Vincent's School in Liverpool, very special school, with some of her students, which when we visited during last year's Great Big Green Week, we met her and we discovered that the school's role in terms of playing the role that they play in the lives of young people and their potential impact on the local community that's driven by the Ministry of Eco-Education. Over the next hour, we will have an introduction to the Ministry of Eco-Education for those who don't know about us, before hearing more about the findings of our actual impact report. We'll then have a short discussion with young people, teachers and head teachers who've been part of the journey with us. And to finish, we will hear from organisations who are key to the future plans for the Ministry of Eco-Education. We also wanted to welcome our friends from the Premier League Charitable Fund, Northumberland County Council, Minchinhampton Academy and the Young Green Britain Challenge, who you'll hear from later on this call. First of all, a little introduction to what we're all about. Dale Vince, he is the founder of green energy company Ecotricity. He's chairman of Forest Green Rovers, as many of you might know, which is the most sustainable football club in the world. Dale supports the Ministry of Eco-Education through the Green Britain Foundation mentioned earlier. Through the Green Britain Foundation, he's now creating a think and do tank, which is a bit different to just a think tank, on a mission to bring about a green Britain. Unfortunately, Dale is not able to join us, but he's up in Manchester at the moment. He's actually meeting a number of Labour Party and Conservative MPs. So he's recorded a short message to introduce the Ministry of Eco-Education to share his enthusiasm. So over to Dale.
My name's Dale, and the idea for the Ministry of Eco-Education came about through a conversation I had with a head teacher that I know a few years ago, and he really was lamenting the lack of preparation that he was able to put into his primary school kids for what's coming in the world, the climate crisis and the big issues of sustainability. And we had a quick conversation, agreed that we could work together in being a teacher, me being an environmentalist, and that we could build a curriculum for primary schools that had sustainability woven into every topic. It took us a couple of years, but we did it. We put it out in the world a year ago. We road tested it with 20 schools from Southampton to Liverpool. It's gone down really well with kids and with teachers. We've just launched this impact report, which is about showing the measurable impact that we've had, so we can put some numbers on it, and it's really quite incredible. We have an ambition now to move to 10,000 schools by 2025, and we think we have a credible roadmap for achieving that. And if you like what you hear and see today about this curriculum, then please tell schools that you know, tell teachers that you know, tell parents that you know, and become part of this movement.
Fantastic. So Dale, myself and Dahlia Gnome, who unfortunately can't be with us today, as the three trustees of the Green Britain Foundation, are very excited to have had the privilege of working with Paul Turner who's been pulling all this work together for us. We've been on some of the visits to schools and so forth, but Paul has the real insights into everything and has helped create the impact report. So I'm now going to introduce Paul, who is the education lead for the Ministry of Eco-Education, who's going to share some of the highlights of our impact report. Over to you, Paul.
Well, thank you so much, Helen. I'm just going to make sure I'm set up. I'm just going to make sure I share my screen, and I'll tell you a bit about the journey that we're going to just spend 10 minutes going through. So yeah, it's been a wonderful experience working with schools across the country and some amazing teachers, academics, and all sorts of people to have a real impact on young people. And hopefully over the next 10 minutes, we'll kind of explain how we have assessed that and explored and kind of quantified the impact that we've had over the last year. So just in terms of the journey that we've gone on, we started about a year and a half ago in Minchinhampton, which is a stone's throw from Stroud, just up on the hill. And we're going to hear from some of the staff and students from there in a minute. But that journey also started with some wider research. We created a scoping report, which can be accessed from our website. We looked at mapping the whole environmental education landscape. And really tried to do as much research to create that solid, rigorous foundation. And then we went through this process of developing the curriculum, and that was really working closely with Minchinhampton and all the staff there, working with the sort of seeds of ideas that they'd had for a number of years and helped to develop those, and also bridge them with all of the free resources that already exist. And then we spent the last year from September 2021 working with 15 pioneer schools, and I'll explain a bit more about what schools those were in a minute. And then here we are now, we have this impact report setting out kind of the scale of what we've achieved and the impact it's had on communities across the country. So just going back to that research and foundation, we wanted to make sure that we had a really rigorous base. And so we worked with a number of academics to create these 4 pillars that are the key principles behind the curriculum. So for anyone who has not heard so much about the Ministry of Eco-Education, it has an inquiry approach. Everything is question-based, and it's about students using structures and frameworks to go and explore and understand the world around them. We've also pulled in ideas of adventure, and particularly micro-adventure, and that is coloured in terms of the types of activities that we emphasise. And then also the language that we've used throughout the curriculum is really focused on rebalancing that relationship between humans and the rest of nature. And lastly, systems thinking actually has 2 approaches. It's this idea that we're trying to show how those traditional subject silos interconnect, and the inquiry questions show teachers how they can be pulling knowledge from a number of different subject areas, but also how the world is interconnected. And these inquiry questions really lend themselves for people to be able to go and understand how the world's interconnected. Now, here is just a flavour of some of the amazing organisations and their resources that we've pulled together. There's more than 160 different organisations now that we have managed to weave together their resources into these series of lessons. And I'll show you in a minute what they look like. But what we're really trying to do at the heart of this is to help teachers and schools be able to make better use of and to more easily access and use within their lessons all of the wonderful resources that already exist. And that's very much at the heart of our approach, is about amplifying all of the materials that already exist and helping rationalise that for schools so that they can better understand how that connects and kind of engages with individual lessons. Now, so in total, we've pulled together 50 different inquiry questions, and that's growing on a kind of weekly, monthly basis, with teachers feeding into this, with other organisations and academics suggesting ideas for inquiry questions. So in total, we've got more than 400 lessons. We've also got a number of supporting videos as well that help explain some of these inquiry questions and series of lessons and provide additional support for teachers. This is just a snapshot of what at the moment this looks like. So we've broken them down into different themes. They map with the Eco Schools framework. Each of these inquiry questions is meant to provide a hook, be a short, kind of thought-provoking question, and they're each targeted toward different key stages. The other thing to emphasize is that we're really trying to encourage real-world outcomes. And so all of what the students work towards and produce is something that has an impact beyond the classroom, something that has a wider positive impact in their local community. just in terms of what this looks like then for teachers. This framework just shows you the kind of cover sheet for each of these. They follow a similar pattern. We've embedded literacy. We've shown how it connects with the national curriculum. We've summarized some key points for teachers to understand how the key ideas that are being communicated. And you can start to see how each of the lessons is a sort of curated list of third-party resources that we are linking to and suggesting and just helping teachers to be able to access and use. Now, over the last year, we learned, or we kind of understood, that actually it's not as simple as just providing teachers with resources and helping connect them with the materials that already exist and the opportunities. We realized that we needed some sort of journey for them. So we created or crafted this 5-step journey, which again brings together lots of the third-party resources available to schools to help support them in that journey to becoming a zero carbon school. And so it's essentially about providing a framework to help them to make use of all of those opportunities rather than being sort of bombarded and overwhelmed with all of the possibility that's out there. They can follow this framework and make use of it. So here's just a selection of some of the resources, particularly around step 1. We've got things like the Nature Connection Index that I'll go into a bit more detail in a second. We've got some surveys that schools use. We've also got, this is step 2, which is then looking at mapping curriculum, mapping the school site, looking at some of the staff training that's available. One of the things to say at this point is, over the last year, we were using Google Drive, and it's the benefits in terms of people being able to easily feedback and comment. And that was really beneficial for gaining feedback from teachers and from other organizations. But we're just at the moment going through a process of migrating this onto our website, and schools will be able to log on in the coming month and be able to access this through our official website. So in terms of the 15 pioneer schools and this almost like controlled trial that we have done over the last year, these are the interventions that we did with each of the schools. We gave them a number of surveys, both for staff, for governors, for students. We also then provided materials that were set out in that step 2 around the curriculum and site mapping, and also signposted staff training, as well as kind of helping facilitate some of that ourselves as well. We then obviously gave them access to all of these lesson materials and helped them to see the connections and understand how they fitted with the school's current curriculum. And we also provided a number of sort of launch events where we came, it was possibly through drop-down days or providing assemblies. Some of that was in person, some of it virtual. But the idea was to create a real sort of momentum for the school to then begin their journey. So those were the interventions. So in total, yeah, 15 pioneer schools, and I'll show you a map in a second of where they were. They were completely across the country. Nearly 5,000 young people who were engaged in lessons and materials connected with the Ministry of Eco-Education, and in total about 450 teachers who were part of this journey and process. I wanted to give you a flavour of some of the key people that have been part of this journey as well, because I think it's important to emphasise that so much of what we've been doing is about relationship building and bringing people together, sharing best practice and helping show that there are other people on this journey as well, helping build confidence. And we've done a lot of that through creating video content, and we've got a YouTube channel that I'll share in a minute that hosts a lot of the material that we've gone into schools and recorded. So in terms of the schools, they stretch all the way from Plymouth all the way up actually towards Durham. These schools come from a really varied background, and that was very purposeful. So when we chose these 15 schools and kind of connected with and invited them to take part in this, there's a variety of schools in terms of demographics, free school meals, also in terms of the amount of green space and open space that the schools have on their site, a mixture of urban and rural, and also a variety of different confidences from teachers. So some schools, yes, had really passionate educators who have a real drive around environmental education, but we also had some schools who that sort of person had left and there was a bit of a void, and they were looking for support to be able to build that within their school. So a real variety in terms of the backgrounds, and that was very purposeful because we wanted to show that this could be done in any setting. So in terms of the methods that we used to measure impact, we had some initial surveys that were carried out both at the beginning of the process, before the schools had done any of the journey, and then at the end, so sort of in the summer term of 2022. We also carried out the Nature Connection Index, which are these 5 short sentences that people score against. And that we did with the widest number of people. We did with students, teachers, parents, governors, really to get a breadth in terms of the school community. We also carried out a number of interviews, and that was throughout the process, but also targeted towards feedback at the end. And then there was an ongoing feedback process using particularly a lot of the online tools that helped people, just as they taught a lesson, be able to comment and feedback on. So in terms of the impact, what we measured was there was a 71% increase in teacher confidence. And this really is the headline statistic, that by providing this additional material, or just sort of providing a journey that brings together material that already exists, really helped build teachers' confidence. We also saw a 53% increase in sense of hope. So just that mentality, or the psychology, in the sense that teachers actually feeling that there was a kind of a sense of hope in terms of positive change and action. And then overall, we also saw a 27% increase in people's nature connection. And just to go into a bit more detail around that, before the process, on average, the score was around 67 for all the people that we surveyed. The UK average is 61. So I think there's probably something in there around the idea of teachers and young people and people connected with schools, that their nature connection is potentially a little bit higher. But what has been identified by research is to suggest that in order to have pro-environmental behaviours and for a sustainable future, we need everyone to have a score of at least 70. And what we actually found is after this journey, or after 1 year of this journey, on average, the score had increased up to 85, which we think is a really significant impact and well above that, the 70 that's needed for a sustainable future. Now, the other thing that we wanted to emphasize is, as well as measuring these numbers and the interviews, there were also lots of real world impacts through practical action that had happened in school communities. We have created some video content to help communicate that. These are some examples of a fashion show and a bird hide that came out of Minchinhampton. But each of the 15 schools has got multiple examples where students were inspired by the lessons, and either through the series of lessons or after the lessons, through their own enthusiasm, they continued and created projects and had impact within the local community. So just overall then, you can see a summary there in terms of the impact that we saw through the Ministry of Eco-Education approach, both in terms of increases in knowledge and understanding of young people, but also around hope, about community action and wider sort of pro-environmental behaviours. Now, I also wanted to highlight some really sort of nice comments, I guess, from people within this space. And we've been really thankful for the support and connections that we've gained from all sorts of organisations. And I did want to take a moment now just to thank all of those people as well, but also to say it's such an exciting opportunity. And I think this moment in time is really important to continue building this momentum and to support each other as well, and to bring together our kind of enthusiasm. So in terms of moving forward, so we've had this trial of 15 pioneer schools. We've now got more than 100 schools engaged in the programme, and we've been shifting our focus more to secondary this year. And when we talk about our future plans, that will make a bit more sense. But we have this ambition of reaching half of all primary schools by 2025. And we think we've got a really clear process and journey to be able to reach that. We've got our new website that's coming up online in coming months, which will make it much easier for schools to be able to sign up and access the materials. We've got a number of avenues working with local authorities, with academy chains and other organisations to help scale and amplify the kind of resources and impact that we've seen. What we also have is we've got this series of events that we're partnering with a whole variety of other organisations, really trying to position ourselves as a kind of a connector or a facilitator, bringing together teachers and academics and organisations who are enthusiastic in this space and help share knowledge, share experience and build best practice. And then what you'll hear later on in the call, we are really excited to be working with Northumberland County Council and the Premier League. And then also we're launching this new initiative of the Young Green Britain Challenge. So these are other ways that we're going to be expanding our reach and reaching that target of half for schools. So thank you so much. I'll hand back to Helen.
Thanks, Paul. That was great. I mean, I've seen those stats many times now as we've been working through the impact report, but I think the reality of the knock-on effect perhaps of this kind of connection with nature is perhaps much bigger than maybe I would have imagined a few years back. And I know that I know through talking to Minchinhampton, to Nick, the headmaster there, head teacher there, you know, there are lots of anxieties that I think if anyone is involved in education, we're all very aware of the issues that exist at the moment post-pandemic. And so I think this whole sort of theme around how we can engage children with nature and also help them to be real champions for the future is imperative. What I wanted to do now is open up the floor to Nick, to Minchinhampton Primary School Academy. So Minchinhampton, as Paul's mentioned, has been instrumental in helping us create these materials and test these materials. We're privileged today to have Kerry, who is one of the teachers here, who's been very involved in, she's our deputy head there, who's really been involved in helping shape the curriculum. Hello to Nick, who I know has had to dash here because I could tell I was admitting you 2 seconds ago into this, which is great that you're here, in terms of being able to kind of really talk about the impact of how the Ministry of Eco-Education has come together. And there's 2 students. I can only see one who I suspect is Sophie. Are you Sophie? So I've got Sophie and Lenny, but I think she's Eleni, but Lenny, we called her. Thank you. That was great. Hi, nice to see you both. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, so we've got Charlotte, have we?
Yes. Yeah, that's me.
Yes. So you're all very involved in all the programme, and I think I've seen you in action a couple of times in various things, particularly the fashion show or leading up to it. I'm going to ask you a few questions, your choice who answers, and I'm sure there's a very democratic way of choosing who's going to answer these questions, but you have been absolutely spearheading this programme from the beginning, and we're very grateful to you for this. I want to ask the first question. How does the Ministry of Eco-Education approach? What does that Ministry of Eco approach mean to you as a school? How has that affected you as a school? Who'd like to take that one?
So, I mean, I feel like it's really helped us understand like what's going on in the world, because yeah, we learned about other countries and like how much money they got paid to make clothes, and like we just spend so much money on clothes because we have them. Yeah,
it's because we want them rather than because we need them. That's the thing, isn't it? That's what we've been told.
That's really interesting. So you've been learning about not everything is, everything's too much available to us, actually, isn't it? We've become a society that is, able to have what we want when we want it. And has that had a sort of detrimental impact on the planet, do you think?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways how, particularly in fashion has a real detrimental impact, hasn't it? And as a program, you've been learning about all of the environmental things that you can do at the school. How has that bigger program affected you as a school? Has that made everybody more conscious?
I think that all everybody's trying to do to help the world and stuff, it's raised lots more awareness to everybody.
And what were you saying you do as a school captain now in the dinner hall?
We help to reduce the food waste. To make sure everybody can understand how it's like destroying our planet.
Very good, very good. And do you think this has now been integrated into everything you do at the school? Has that made that big a difference, that when you go home in the evening you think, wow, what can I do at home as well as what can I do in school? Does everyone feel like that? Are they all excited?
I think,
yeah. I mean, some people may not take it.
There's always some.
Yeah.
There's always some.
That's normality. That's the world, isn't it? So, you know, how would you think we might change those people's attitudes?
Well, if we don't do something, then the world is going to end, and they can see what will happen.
That's a very sad statement, but there is a need to do as much as we possibly can. And can I ask you, Nick, before we move to another question, how has it affected Minchinhampton having the Ministry of Eco Education programme? What difference has that made to you?
I mean, I could go on for quite a while. I think an interesting outcome that perhaps we hadn't anticipated is that as a school community and a wider community, it has grown from the curriculum and made us more aware, more determined to do better as a group of people and as an institution. So we now have solar panels on our roof. We now have a bird hide in our grounds. The bird hide was initiated by children who were inspired by the curriculum and wanted a bird hide in the grounds. The solar panels have been community funded by people from across the community. We are becoming, in practice, much better at being sustainable. And I know this has started with the curriculum and being driven by the children. So that bit of it is very exciting. It proves that a primary school in particular, but any school, they're nestled in the middle of a community, really does have quite a lot of power for positive change. So yeah, that's a very exciting development.
Excellent, excellent. And it feels that there is a ripple effect in the community, which is absolutely imperative, and those communities, you know, map into other communities nearby. So if our vision is to obviously encourage as many primary schools and then secondary schools, as Paul was talking about, to be involved. And I think another really striking thing for me actually for you all was when we did a little session at WOMAD Festival this year on the importance of learning about the environment in schools. And you brought along some pupils who were incredible. What I hadn't realized is they were moving up to their secondary school. So they were just finishing, and it certainly made me feel like, wow, you know, they're taking on the mantle for the future. And I think it made us all within the Ministry of Eco Education realize that, you know, we have to really press on now with working with secondary schools. We've reached out to the schools that your pupils were moving up to, because we feel that that's, you know, this has got to continue, you know, it's got to continue, hasn't it, that process. So you did us a very lovely favour by bringing some of your great students to that discussion, and actually the people at the festival obviously really enjoyed the conversation as well. They were outstanding. I wondered before moving to the next question, Charlotte or Kerry, how easy is it to teach the Ministry of Eco Education? How do you find that as a teacher? There are other teachers on the call. How do you go about it?
Well, like I said, in Key Stage 2, we'd already sort of started looking at this before it became this project, because the children started bringing it up. So they were the ones saying, well, why can't we learn more about plastic pollution, for instance? And so within 3-4, we started developing units, and then 5-6 did as well. So, but we actually took what was a national curriculum unit and then just added the eco stuff into it. So you weren't having to do an additional unit, because obviously you're duty bound to doing the national curriculum. So when you look at all the units that have then been created since, and like I said, you know, there's 50+ units, that you'll look, there's always that national curriculum link. So for instance, the rocks one that Paul put up as a demonstration, you know, they year 3-4 have a rock science unit. So you could take that question about is carbon magic and put that into your rock unit that's already there as a year 3-4 science.
Yes.
Just like year 3-4 have got to do rivers. We're doing our river unit in the spring. Of course, they've got to learn what a river is, but the eco side of it will be, well, why are rivers so polluted? Yeah. And so we're putting, where appropriate, the eco links into the history, the science, the geography, and so on. So it's not an add-on, it's becoming part of what we're already doing, because we have threads that run through our curriculum, and one of our big threads is the eco side of it. So I wouldn't say it's an additional work. Obviously, reading up on all of it, that's the additional bit. but that's then when all those resources that Paul and everyone else has put together, you know, it's quite hard to go and find out all these latest statistics about climate change and the impact on the planet. But if you go and sign up and look at the unit, we did climate change last term, it has all the resources you need to go to. And then it tells you the latest statistics for the temperature increases over the past 60 years. So the research is almost done for you. And then it's just about you then taking it on and delivering it to the children as you see fit.
Yeah, and that's lovely to hear, because that was the purpose of it, to bring the resources closer to home. There isn't, you know, we're all very, very conscious of the pressures teachers are under, and I don't know half of it, but I do know that the way in which we kind of have shaped this program is to enable teachers to think, I'm teaching this subject, what can I add as a spin-off to that's about the environment, which is really important.
I think also some of those units as well is that you know, even if it says it's a key stage 1 unit or a key stage 2, you can level it up or level it down to the children. Some of those questions that are key stage 2 focus could easily be asked to a year 1 or year 2 child. You know, they're not stupid, so you can adapt it as see fit. Like I said, there was the climate change one we adapted to suit 3-4 because it went in with our unit we were currently doing, and we just up leveled some of the resources a little bit to suit the year 3-4 children.
Fantastic.
I think, you know,
I mean, in terms of learning, this is powerful knowledge you're handing the children. This is truly powerful knowledge, and it's relevant. It's makes them bothered. You know, you're not patronizing them. It's quite deep knowledge. It's perhaps going in deeper than you'd expect with children of a primary age, but that's not patronizing them. That's giving them what they need to be able to process this climate crisis and try and do something about it. So it's so necessary. I mean, no one could argue with how necessary this is, but it's brilliant learning as well.
Amazing. You talk about that a lot, Charlotte.
I was just going to say, I think further down the school as well, that recognising the importance of not dumbing it down for those younger children. Actually, you know, there's a limit as to what it's perhaps necessary to tell them at such a young age. But, you know, I've been teaching year 1 reception for 7 years now. And actually, you know, when you're doing your outdoor learning, when you're teaching UIFS, you're supposed to be covering understanding of the world. You're covering that kind of general curiosity, and we have naturally very curious students at Minchinhampton. We're quite lucky in that regard, but actually harnessing that curiosity, kind of channeling that in the right direction when they're doing their outdoor learning. There are so many opportunities, and you know, both inside and outside of the classroom to kind of bring the Ministry of Eco Education into, you know, the learning, to bring those units in. It doesn't have to be something that's kind of, you know, taught as a lesson, sort of specifically step by step. It's great to use as a scheme. It's great to use like that. But actually, particularly with the younger children, you know, it's really lovely, as Kerry said, to be able to just bring it into what we already do here.
Perfect.
You know,
Yeah.
It works a treat for that. It's really useful, as Kerry said, to have the statistics, to have the research, to have the information, and to have that big idea. But at the end of the day, you know, to just, as I say, channel that natural curiosity that children have. It's really good.
That's really nice, isn't it? It's the natural curiosity. That's amazing. And from the perspective, the impact report has really demonstrated this connection with nature. I'm very conscious Minchinhampton's in a beautiful sort of, you know, in a very lovely part of Gloucestershire, already very embedded in nature. But interested to hear whether that's had any additional kind of success and achievement of bringing more children close together. Have they just gone, or are they going? The two, I'll do Sophie and
they're still here.
And they're there. Do they want to say anything?
I think.
Oh, that's okay. Don't want to ignore them. I can't see them. But has it made a difference? Is it making a difference? And what are the additional benefits of being connected to nature that might be good to share with everyone?
So why are we lucky to have the commons, have everything around us?
Because it helps understand, and you can see all the nature around you and understand what's happening to it.
It's quite good to look on a sort of quite a local level, isn't it, Sophie? So we do quite a lot of learning about what we actually have immediately around us, don't we? So
that's good. Thank you. That's brilliant. That's really, really good. And I guess looking forward, what are you most excited about? Is there anything that as a school that you think your next stage within this can, you know, what's next to come forward? Obviously working within the Ministry of Eco-Education, but what do you feel can be done?
I think it'd be interesting to see, like, now that, you know, we've been doing these eco units even before the Ministry of Education, like the impact it has on the children after that, and just looking, because now we've got the whole of the school on board with all of this, how we can build upon it. So for instance, if we take the plastics as a really simple example, there's each phase does an aspect of looking at plastic pollution, so that gets built on. And so by the time they're in year 6, they're looking at the science of microplastics and discussing it. I mean, they held a couple of years ago, so pre-COVID, but they held a massive show in the hall where they educated parents about microplastics and, like, you know, all plastic alternatives. So I think it'd be exciting to see, like, how we can build upon the children's knowledge now that we've been doing this, and looking at the impact of the year 2s coming into year 3 and so on, and how we can build on that. And also, you know, like I said, making them just much more aware of their surroundings and then the links with the community. So the fashion show is a big thing. I mean, these two were involved in it as year 5s. And I'd like to think that'd be something, you know, that we could do every couple of years, although the teachers, it's quite a thing for the teachers to be on board with. But to look at, have that and actually see the impact of that going forward. You know, and seeing some of these children, I don't know, becoming fashion designers, but eco fashion designers, that would be the where we see them when they're 20 years old. So it's beyond the primary as well.
I think it's, I mean, we do think it's really important. It's that transition right the way through education, showing opportunity, providing you guys with, you know, ideas and thoughts, because actually you form some really solid ideas of what you think you might want to do when you're older at this age, don't you? And I know several people who've, you know, decided they were going to do a certain thing at the age of 5 or 6, and they did it because they really believed they could do it. They'd learned all about it. You know, one example is Gary Neville, who we work with, who's a footballer. He said he wanted to play for Man United when he was 5 years old. He played for Man United for 25 years. No, you can follow your dreams. That's the most important thing. And if we can just open up all those opportunities for you, that's amazing.
And I think it's also for them to be able to see that they can make a difference. I mean, Sophie was talking about a letter she wrote in year 3.
Nice.
So she wrote to the Lego company to complain about the use of plastics, and she can remember, like, they all had to do a persuasive letter, but, you know, she can remember that, and that's 3 or 4 years later. So I think it's those things that they can hold on to and actually see if they can make a difference. I
agree. Yeah, you are making a difference already. That's the most important thing to always remember. You're already on that journey, which is amazing. That's brilliant. Thank you very, very much. So we've got quite a few other things to get through, so I hate to leave you, but I just want to say a special thank you, because it was really nice of you to stay on and talk to us, and thank you very much to you, Charlotte, to Megan, to Nick as well, to Kerry and to Nick, because I think you've played an instrumental role, as I say, but obviously there's lots of other schools involved, and we'll continue to invite many others to talk about what we're doing as well. So thank you. One of the future things that we want to do, and we've been working quite hard on behind the scenes, is a kind of rather unique programme. You'll know that we're part of Forest Green Rovers Football Club, or many of you will. So Dale is the chairman, and we run programmes that already mean that we go into the local community, into schools, and we help support them through their lessons. Now, normally this is done through a programme called Primary Stars. And the Primary Stars programme is open to schools all around the country, and for football clubs to be able to provide that support. We've done something a bit different. We've turned things on its head a little bit. And thanks to Jane, who's going to talk to us now, Jane Donnelly from the Premier League Charitable Fund, we're going to learn a little bit about how we've worked together, Ministry of Eco-Education and the Premier League, to create a new set of criteria that can be taught in schools. So I'll hand you over to Jane. Hi, Jane. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. And thank you, Minchin Hampton School. That was really inspiring to hear about everything that you've been doing. So as Helen mentioned, I work for the Premier League Charitable Fund. If you don't know who we are the Premier League's charity, and we distribute funding to football club community organisations and foundations across the country to deliver projects in schools and in their local communities. I work on our primary school programme, which is called Premier League Primary Stars, and this is available to all primary schools in England and Wales. We cover PE, obviously, PSHE, English and maths, and everything we do is underpinned by the core values of the Premier League, which you can see on the screen. There are: be ambitious, be inspiring, be connected, and be fair. We have more than 100 club community organisations going into schools, as Helen mentioned. So the Briton Foundation are one of them. They go into primary schools and they support teachers in teaching PE, but also they deliver sessions for pupils on English and maths, and we do quite a lot of PSHE as well. And that is what we've been doing with the Briton Foundation, and the Ministry of Eco-Education is part of our PSHE strand. So we have more than 59,000 teachers who've signed up for our online resources, which are available across the country. So obviously, if you're in a school where you're not near a football club, or you don't have a football club coming in to support you, then those teachers can still access our resources on the website, which is plprimarystars.com. And we are in about 84% of schools in England and Wales at the moment. So this is, as Paul was saying, part of the aim is to grow the reach of the Ministry of Eco-Education's resources. So they approached us to work together to use our network of clubs and our teacher network to get their content and their expertise out there. We work with subject experts and specialists wherever we can. So, for example, we work with the National Literacy Trust on all our literacy resources. And so that was really brilliant for us to work with the Ministry of Eco-Education and use their expertise to allow us to produce these resources in the sustainability space. So we have 4 lessons which are on transport, nature, energy and food, as you can see there. And then if you can go on to the next slide, please. Thanks. In addition to that, we also have a school sustainability plan template. So once schools have finished the 1 lesson or all 4 lessons, they can then allow the pupils to come up with their own ideas for how they want to make changes in their school. And we've also produced a word bank to support pupils with SEND needs, kind of with some of the vocabulary for each of the topics. So each lesson features examples from Forest Green Rovers and also other Premier League clubs, and just kind of in terms of what they're doing in each area to try and make changes to be more sustainable. And I think most of the lessons finish with an extension activity where pupils can kind of go and research their favourite football club and what they're doing, and think of ideas for what they might be able to do to kind of make even more progress. So the lessons involve learning about the kind of the subject. So for example, in the energy one, we've got kind of explanations of different types of energy, renewable and non-renewable, what they are, how they work, and then examples of what football clubs are doing to change their energy sources, and practical activities as well. So I think in the energy one, it's making a paper wind turbine to sort of explain how that works, but we've also got some even more practical ones, such as cooking a vegan meal, or coming up with a recipe for one if there's not facility or funds to do that, and things like designing a miniature garden to encourage nature. And there's also discussion-based activities in there as well, so encouraging children to think about the topic and talk with their friends and talk as a class about their ideas and their thoughts on it, and just what they're learning. So as you can see from the slides, we use the topics, but through a football lens. We're using the appeal of football and the appeal of Premier League clubs and other clubs to engage pupils in topics that they might think they're not interested in, or that might seem like something that's going to be difficult to learn about, but then they can think about it in the context of football, and it helps them relate it to their own life. The resources are launching really soon, actually. This Thursday, they'll be going live on our website. So you can check on plprimarystars.com on Thursday if you want to explore the resources further. And we're really looking forward to having them live, and it's been really great working with the Ministry of Eco-Education, and it's worked really well for us because we had done previously some resources on plastic pollution as part of Sky Ocean Rescue campaign, but this was something that we were looking to do a more in-depth resource pack on, and so we've been able to do that with the Ministry of Eco-Education. So hopefully it will help them to reach a lot more schools, and it will help us to have really great and robust resources on the topic that we didn't really have that much on previously. Thank you.
Jane, thank you very much. And personally, I just want to say thank you. We've really enjoyed working with you as well. It was a huge, exciting pleasure to have the opportunity to start to work with Primary Stars and use you and Ross and the team to produce these materials, because we know the impact and the potential reach through all of the charities, the community trusts that exist within football clubs. So that's 72 clubs in the English Football League, 92 of the Championship. If all of those community trusts are now embracing some of those materials and encouraging schools when they're going in to deliver Primary Stars, or just pointing, those schools to those resources, we're really going to start to change hearts and minds. So I really appreciate it. We do sincerely appreciate what you've done. So thank you very much for the opportunity to work with you. I'm going to move on and now introduce you to somebody I've not met yet. So I'd like to introduce you to Hazel Scurr, who is the Assistant Project Manager for Climate Change at the Northumberland County Council. Hazel currently leads on Northumberland County Council's response to climate change and the climate crisis, and is now going to share a little bit around how you're collaborating to support schools in Northumberland, which I hear is very exciting. So I'll hand over to you, Hazel.
Thanks, Helen. I can't take sole credit for leading on this. I have a wonderful team that also is helping take Northumberland County towards net zero. But yes, I'm looking at education and climate change and how we can support schools across Northumberland, kind of starting to make that journey. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of context, as I don't know if anyone on this call would live in Northumberland, but the council declared a climate emergency in 2019, and we set about creating a climate change action plan for the county. And the two kind of key targets are to reduce our kind of council-owned emissions in half by 2025, and then achieve a net zero carbon emissions by 2030 for the county as a whole. And we recognise within that pledge that we only have direct control as a council over, I think it's something, our direct control over emissions is about 2%. We have kind of impact over 30% of emissions across the county, but then beyond that, we're going to have to really bring people on board with us to reach our targets. Next slide, please. So within our action plan, again, just a bit of context, we have different priority action areas. We have different people in my team who work on these areas. So we have the direct contributors. So these are the kind of ones that are contributing to emissions across the county, heating, transport, all of the things that you would assume to be creating emissions. And then we also have enablers, so thinking about policy across the council, and then also engagement and partnerships, which is what I lead on. Next slide, please. So we started thinking about engagement with schools. And I think particularly what Nick was saying from Mitch and Hampton, when he was talking about the impact you can have on communities, we thought, one school in a community, most people have some sort of connection to a school, whether it's through their children, grandchildren, whether they're fosters, whether they're foster carers, or they're teachers at that school. So it's a really pivotal kind of institution within our communities, that we thought, you know, not only can this be really great in terms of teaching the next generation of society, but also the impact that schools have right now in their communities is huge. So the kind of overall objective then for kind of our links between education and climate change in Northumberland is that students and teachers are aware of our climate commitments for the council, that environmental issues and climate change becomes integrated into all aspects of teaching in the curriculum, that teachers feel confident in discussing those causes and impact solutions, and how that can fit into their teaching. Schools to provide that means of engagement and communication within their wider school communities, and that the environmental principles should be adopted as a kind of main aim or principle of that school as well, and seeing how they can contribute. And then finally, and this ties in with the Department of Education's policy paper that came out recently, is to have sustainability leads within their schools. Next slide, please. And the reason I highlighted this is we've got a kind of two-pronged approach. One of our teachers in Northumberland actually introduced us to Paul and the Ministry of Eco. So I've highlighted the kind of objectives that fit under that category in yellow, and we're looking to create a Northumberland focused resource with the Ministry of Eco. And then we've also got that kind of, okay, well, how do we support teachers in this as well? And we are working with UK School Sustainability Network to set up a Northumberland network as well. So not only are we going to hopefully provide resources and links to the Ministry of Eco's resources that are already there, but also to kind of create alongside that a network where teachers can share resources, concerns, issues, funding, anything that they come across, they can support each other. And so it's kind of a two-pronged approach, hopefully, at the moment. It's all very early days. Next slide, please. So this is our kind of Northumberland School Sustainability Network, and this is really early days. So we're just kind of putting feelers out, getting schools on board. We're going to have our first kind of teachers meeting with the schools and teachers who have showed interest in joining it. And then it's a student-led network for secondary schools primarily is how it started out, but we've got lots of primary schools that are interested. So we're going to be thinking about how we can support networks of primary school teachers as well, and how that they can like share resources and support each other. So that's that side of it. And then next slide, please. And then we started thinking, okay, you know, we've got all of these commitments that Northumberland has, Northumberland County Council has said towards our kind of net zero targets. And we understand the kind of context of going green, going net zero in Northumberland, but actually out there on the internet, it's not easy to find. So we've decided that we would work with the Ministry of Eco to kind of create a resource pack for teachers to understand how all of these kind of global issues and phenomena and are linked to a kind of Northumberland base. And we've done that looking at 7 themes that the Ministry of Eco uses, and trying to create almost like a storyline or a narrative for Northumberland in that scheme. So this is just one example, which is energy, the energy theme, and thinking about the kind of context of Northumberland, and it lent itself quite nicely to a timeline. And then thinking about how we can link that to resources that are accessible in Northumberland, so our teachers can really ground their teaching within what's around them. So we've got key terms, we've got explore the areas. So, you know, we've got Blythe STEM Hub, we've got kind of power stations, we've got old coal mines that have been turned into nature reserves and things like that. More opportunities to learn about Northumberland, and then an area that links directly to the Ministry of Eco's resources and those kind of key lesson plans that link to this. And I realise that I'm running out of time, so I just say that the reason we've done it like this is that we want teachers, any teacher, even if the whole school is not necessarily ready yet to jump into kind of mapping their curriculum and things like that, that they can pick up these resources and run with it. And I'll leave it there.
Hazel, thank you. You did very well. My fault that we're running out of time. It's not yours. That was really, really brilliant and amazing initiative from the County Council. I think there's probably links that could be done with football teams as well, because we're noticing local authorities are now really teaming up with their football teams, because their football teams are now looking at sustainability in a big way. So just as Elle mentioned there might be some nice connection, and hopefully the Primary Stars programme, as well as our Ministry of Eco work, will spark some excitement for your schools. So that's incredible. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to swiftly move on to a very good friend of ours who started working with us, Kat Crisp. So Kat has very recently joined the team actually to support us. She works and has set up an organisation called Social Innovation for All. And she's previously worked with UNICEF and is now leading what we call, as on the screen, the Young Green Britain Challenge, which is a very exciting thing for us. This has been brought together by the Ministry of Eco Education, Volunteers for Future, and I Have a Voice. And Kat is leading this for us to champion eco entrepreneurship and social action in secondary schools across the UK. Kat, can I hand to you? Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks very much, Helen. It's been great to hear from everyone from Hampton, Northumberland and Premier League. So building on all of this really exciting work, we want to introduce the latest kind of initiative, which, as Helen said, focuses more on secondary schools. And we're really sort of excited to kind of officially launch it today. So it's the Young Green Britain Challenge, and the challenge supports students to learn and apply design, innovation, business and other skills, other transferable skills. And students will be given the tools to explore local climate issues and sustainability issues and design entrepreneurial solutions. So just a few sort of important notes in terms of framing what the challenge looks like. So this is a pilot year, in the same way that the Ministry of Eco Education has worked to sort of test and learn with pioneer schools. We're looking to do the same with secondary schools, and looking at how we really engage whole year groups in a cross-curricular manner and kind of go beyond some of the ideas competition, so students really have the opportunity to kind of actually put things into action. The focus on the pilot year is England, purely practical purposes in terms of MEE's current footprint and the sort of different curricula and school years across the devolved nations. We've got sort of schools signed up already from across the country. We do have a few spaces left if anyone is listening today and knows a school that might be interested. The focus of the pilot year is Key Stage 3, so years 7, 8 or 9, with the choice of year being up to the different schools. And the for all, so the inclusion part is really important to us in a number of different dimensions. So we're asking whole year groups to participate. That's one sort of dimension of it, not just a sort of a select or self-selecting or selected set of students. The challenge and the package of support that we're offering with the support from the Green Britain Foundation is very much focused on state schools. So that's maintained academies and special schools, because we know how hard it is to resource these types of things within the staffing and budget constraints that most schools are under. And we do already have one special school signed up as well, St Vincent. So I think you saw earlier in some of the sort of pictures, and we'll be working there with the staff to really kind of understand how to make the challenge inclusive and the materials inclusive for their students. So what does the pilot look like and the kind of experience look like from a school's perspective? So it's launching sort of now for this current 22-23 sort of school year. The first school actually launched as Year 9 Assembly last Tuesday. The Explore phase is a set of materials that teachers will deliver either through lessons or through tutor time. And essentially this phase is about bringing students into teams, helping them to identify local climate issues. And this local piece is really key, because it's about something you can actually relate to, research and take action on, and then sort of research those issues. Then the design phase is a design sprint. So we, 2 members from the Young Green Britain team, will go into each school and run a full day workshop, which is about diving more into the problem and then starting to come up with solutions and leaving that with a prototype essentially of a solution. Then the next phase, develop, focuses on sort of developing the prototype through sort of more research, some costings and a project plan. And then enabling students to prepare to pitch for seed funding, sort of Dragon's Den style. So at each school, 5 teams will receive £100 of seed funding, again from the Green Britain Foundation, to actually start putting their ideas into action. And then at the end of May 2023, each school will select 1 team to compete in the sort of national challenge, where 4 teams will then be selected to receive £1,000 investment to actually really, you know, make their ideas kind of a reality. So from a young person's perspective, this is about the environment, but it's also very much about skills for the future. It's about working with your friends. It's about doing something of your choice and really learning how to put ideas into action and to make a difference. From a school perspective, there are sort of a number of different curriculum links that we've identified. This also supports the Gatsby benchmarks, focusing on career readiness. For those schools that have climate or net zero commitments already, this will almost certainly help them. And it links well to the Ofsted framework. So finally, just to introduce the team, you obviously all know Paul very well. Sort of my background, as Helen said, is sort of with UNICEF most recently in the last 5 years, leading the design and scale up of their youth social innovation and social entrepreneurship programs. And I'm really passionate about democratizing access to innovation and design. We have Rebecca from I Have a Voice, and they equip young people with the tools and confidence to engage with democratic processes, which seems apt in terms of what's happening right around us at the moment, so that they can speak up effectively on issues that matter to them and their communities. And then Laura, who leads Volunteers for Future, they bring volunteers into schools to support delivery of climate-led education. So we're bringing sort of 4 quite diverse perspectives together to this pilot and really looking forward to sort of working with an exciting selection of forward-thinking schools, teachers and students to sort of co-create and deliver and learn. So just finally, I'm sure we've got lots of different people on the call here today. So we have a few different ways it would be great to engage with the wider MEE community. So we have a small number of spaces left for schools. So if you know any schools that would like to be involved, please get in touch. We will shortly be seeking volunteer mentors and some other volunteer roles. So again, get in touch. We'll be looking for sponsorship for sort of the national challenge events sort of, you know, next summer. And we'll also, I think there may be some academics on the call, so we're looking at how we measure success. So again, very interested. So please do get in touch if you can help with any of those. Thank you very much. I know we're a bit over.
Thank you, Kat. I am sorry, we are a tiny bit over, very conscious that some people have had to leave, but we've recorded the whole of this session, and we've had some offers of support, I think, with educational materials from Surfers Against Sewage, from Green Blue, who an initiative run by the Royal Yachting Association, and lots of very encouraging remarks as well, which I think just demonstrates that, you know, this is still very early days, but what we're doing is hopefully very solid, and will continue throughout. So I think from our perspective, given the time, I'd just like to thank you everyone for joining us today, and for those who've had to leave early, because it has made a big difference. It's a very important time for us to have a report demonstrating what we've achieved so far. There are lots more opportunities, so we'd love you to share the Ministry of Eco-Education and what we do with your school colleagues, with your friends, family, whoever it might be, to encourage even more young people to get involved, for more schools to get involved. Do look out for the Primary Stars programme, which is obviously launching this Thursday, which will be very exciting to see. Very delighted that we've got to this stage. Great to hear what's happening in terms of Northumberland, in terms of your net zero targets, but also what's happening from school. The Young Green Britain Challenge is something that we're incredibly proud of, and we know it's going to make a difference, particularly shaping things up for secondary school. So I think if you would like to get involved in any way, please just keep in touch. Visit the Ministry of Eco Education site, look up Young Green Britain, look up the Green Britain Foundation where all of this is housed. And we will, again, I hope, meet and be able to continue to tell us and share with you all of the progress that we've made. And finally, thank you, Paul, for all that you're doing so far. It's been an incredible journey so far. I wish you farewell, have a good evening, and we will share the recording with you if you'd like to just go back through anything. Thank you very, very much and have a nice evening.